"Araya," Rona said, "are you all right?" Killian rubbed the back of his neck with a hand, a frown creasing his brow. His gaze swung to a window, and anger flashed across his face. "What is it?" Ruby asked, while Rona hollered in Araya's ear. Words lodged in her throat. She lowered the phone and took another step toward Killian. He shook his head, the fury replaced by apprehension. His attention swung to Araya. "Get out!" His words rang through the building as the windows shattered, shards flying inward. Araya dove under the nearest table and dropped to her haunches, covering her head with her hands as she hid her face against her knees. More glass breaking and falling from the ceiling cut off any other sounds. She felt the sting as tiny slivers of the windows embedded in her skin. The tinkling of glass hitting the floor seemed to go on forever. Finally, it subsided. Araya looked up to find Ruby in a ball on her side under a table, beads of red dotting her clothing and exposed skin. Araya jerked her head to Killian. The sight of the large piece of glass lodged in his side had her heart dropping to her feet. "Killian!" she cried, as she slipped on glass, nearly going down a couple of times as she rushed to him. He lifted his head, and their gazes met. Blood soaked through his shirt in various places, including his arms. "Don't," he warned. Araya ignored him as she fought to stay on her feet. She was nearly to him when his face drained of colour. A moment later, he was thrown sideways, crashing into a table and chairs before sliding into a potted plant with such force that it cracked the ceramic planter, spilling soil atop Killian a moment before the tree toppled over. "What is happening?" Ruby asked in bewilderment. Araya didn't have an answer. All she knew was that she had to reach Killian. Blood dripped from Araya's fingers, dropping to the floor. Glass crunched loudly underfoot as she made her way to Killian, who hadn't moved. "Please, please," she whispered. He had to be alive. "Araya!" Ruby shouted. She felt it then, the presence. Araya whirled around, her magic up to shield herself and hopefully Killian. She couldn't see anything, but she knew it was there. Something pressed against her magic. She called for more of it. It slid through her body, rushing to her palms and then outward. The atmosphere was heavy with evil, but it became incensed at the push of her magic. Killian let out a cry of pain behind her. Araya backed up and dropped to the floor, trying to get close enough so her shield protected him too. The air around her started to condense. Glass was embedded in her knees, but she refused to drop her shield. Then, whatever had been there vanished. Araya spun around to Killian. The sight of his bloody and battered body was almost too much. Sirens wailed in the distance as dozens of voices called out. "Killian! Oh God!" she said, and reached for him.